Watch what happens the next time there's a crisis. Don't look at what's gone, look at what's gone first, because that tells you everything. Hey guys, it's Jara with Look at Prepared. Over the past few years, we've watched food shortages, panic buying, and supply chain disruptions empty store shelves. This has been due to conflicts, storms, supply chain issues, and of course, we all know what happened in 2020. And something interesting happens every single time. Certain items disappear first, and it's not always what people expect. I want to walk through what actually tends to go first based on real events, and more importantly, why it happens. Because if you understand the pattern, you can prepare intelligently instead of reacting. Here are the 7 items that always disappear first when panic buying begins. One of the first categories to thin out during periods of uncertainty is ammo. We've seen this during election cycles, civil unrest, and broader national instability. When people sense uncertainty, demand can spike quickly, and ammunition production doesn't instantly scale to meet that surge. There's also a psychological factor. When people feel instability, they prioritize security. And because ammunition stores well long-term, buyers aren't concerned about it expiring. That durability often leads to larger purchases all at once. And the result is that shelves can empty rapidly. Not necessarily because something has already happened, but because people are reacting to what they think might happen. Unlike many other supplies, properly stored ammunition has a long shelf life. It doesn't require rotation like food, and it's not going to spoil. These factors change buying behavior when people feel uncertain. But it also means that the time to build your stockpile is before any panic buying begins. Security is one of the first instincts during uncertainty, but once people feel protected, they immediately shift to something even more urgent. Number 2 is water. Historically, one of the first categories to thin out during any regional emergency is water. After hurricanes, bottled water is gone in hours. During winter storms and power outages, water aisles empty quickly. During boil advisories, purification tablets and filters disappear fast. You can skip meals, but you can't skip hydration. Most people don't store water ahead of time because it feels unnecessary until it isn't. So, how do you do this? One popular way of storing a little extra water is filling your empty canning jars with water before storing them. The idea is that the jar is going to take up the same amount of shelf space whether it's empty or it's full of water. A word of caution on this: if you're filling jars with tap water and you're not purifying it or sterilizing it, you don't necessarily know what's in that water. And when you need it in an emergency, can you imagine opening up your jars of water just to find that it's no good, that it's full of bacteria and unsafe to drink? Not to mention, glass jars can be a little bit of a recipe for disaster just due to the breakability factor of the jars. I mean, how many times have we seen people's canning shelves smashed all over the ground? So while this is not a bad thing to do, it should definitely not make up the majority of your water storage plan. Buying cases of bottled water or jugs of water is fine for short-term disruptions. It's accessible, it's inexpensive, and it works well for temporary outages. But standard bottled water is not designed for long-term storage. The thin plastic breaks down over time, especially with temperature fluctuations. It can leak, it can degrade, it can absorb odors depending on how it's stored. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't keep bottled water on hand. It means that bottled water is a short-term layer, not a long-term strategy. Long-term storage water, on the other hand, is packaged in thicker, more durable, and safe containers that are actually designed specifically for extended shelf life. It stores more efficiently, lasts longer, and holds up better in varying conditions. There aren't many trustworthy sources for this kind of water, and it can definitely be hard to find. I'm also leery of some of the options out there that are packaged in aluminum cans. But after a lot of research, I did settle on one reliable source, and it's been very satisfying watching my stockpile of long-term water grow. If you want to check it out, I'm going to leave a link in the description down below, or you can scan the QR code here on the screen. After the initial run on water, something else starts happening. Foods begin selling out. Once hydration is secured, even temporarily, the focus shifts to calories. Not just tonight's dinner, but how long disruption might last. So number 3 is food. I'm not talking about all of the canned soups disappearing in one day, although that does happen in some regions. When there's a threat of a storm, everyone goes to the store for the proverbial bread and milk. Fresh foods disappear because more people are buying, but also because stores are reducing or canceling how much they're ordering because they're predicting fewer customers during the storm, for example. And they want to reduce their chance of waste and spoilage in the event that the store loses electricity and refrigeration. During times of more wide-scale panic, this is when we see the major disruptions to the supply chain. This is when the masses start to panic and look beyond bread and milk towards long-term storage food, especially freeze-dried food. Because once people realize that disruption might last weeks or months, they stop buying for tonight and they start buying for next year. There are two buying waves. The first wave buys what's familiar. The second wave buys what lasts. The reason freeze-dried food became so hard to find during recent years wasn't because of hype. It was because of supply and demand. Most manufacturers of freeze-dried food didn't have the surge capacity to keep up with the sudden influx of new customers every time people panicked and more people realized the benefits of freeze-dried foods. We've been working closely within the freeze-dried food industry for years now, and we've seen a lot of ups and downs. More recently, we've been seeing an uptick in demand and purchasing. Over the last month or so, even more so over the last several days, we are seeing trends akin to what we saw in 2020. Supplies expected to last for months have been selling out in mere weeks. Suppliers are struggling to restock, and companies are offering less sales. This is something that we have seen historically. When companies struggle to keep up with demand, they just can't offer sales. They can't run sales and make the demand even higher. During 2020, sales and discounts on freeze-dried food were non-existent. Companies couldn't keep things in stock, and some companies even had to shut down for a period of time because they couldn't get more inventory. That's why, just like I was talking about with ammo, the time to stock up on freeze-dried food is not when disaster hits and when everyone else panics. It's actually before, when things are calm. Right now, although we've seen an uptick, prices are still as low as they can be expected to be in this economy, and there's still enough stock that you can choose high-quality foods instead of just buying whatever's still available or missing out entirely. The best way to build your stockpile of freeze-dried food is slow and steady over time. I make moderate purchases of some freeze-dried food at least once a month. I've spent years in the industry researching and testing out different sources, so I'll put links down below to sources that I trust, as well as any sales that are available and any coupon codes that I have available for my community. Another thing I've learned over the years, even though freeze-dried food has a 25 to 30-year shelf life, there is no way it's sitting on my shelf that long. I'm constantly rotating through it. When you buy high-quality single ingredients, you can feel good about using it in your everyday cooking, reaping the benefits, and still building an advanced supply tucked away for long-term storage and food insurance. The same way that you would with anything else, by buying a little more than you're using. Rotation is the key, though, to making sure that you know how to use what you have and nothing goes to waste ever. But with the trends I'm noticing, it's definitely something to watch and stay ahead of. Now, pause for just a second. If you're noticing a pattern here, it's not random. The first three items are about immediate survival. What comes next shifts from survival to maintaining normal life during disruption. This next one may seem less critical, but history tells a different story. Number 4 is toilet paper. Why? Nobody really knows. I'd like to think we all learned a valuable lesson during the toilet paper crisis of 2020. The reality is, though, most people have forgotten or figure it'll never happen again. Can you make do without? Sure you can, but who would want to? It's good to have, and you definitely don't want to be the only one that runs out. So toss an extra pack or two in the cart each week and stack that stuff to the rafters. Up to this point, we've talked about household essentials, but this is where shortages begin affecting mobility. Number 5 is fuel. During regional events, especially hurricanes, fuel disappears fast. We've seen this over and over again in places like Florida, Texas, and along the Gulf Coast. A storm hasn't even made landfall yet, and gas station lines are wrapped around the block. Why? Generators. When the power grid becomes questionable, people immediately think, how am I going to keep the lights on? How am I going to keep my freezer cold? And generators don't run on hopes and prayers. Fuel demand spikes overnight. At the same time, fuel deliveries slow down because tanker trucks can't move freely during evacuation traffic or severe weather. Unlike food, which can sit on a shelf for weeks, gas stations rely on constant replenishment. When the trucks stop moving, the pumps stop flowing. Fuel shortages happen faster than food shortages because supply is harder to replace locally. A grocery store might have a back room, a gas station doesn't. And here's the psychological piece. Fuel represents mobility. When people feel uncertainty, they want options. They want the ability to leave and get the heck out of Dodge if it comes down to it. So they fill every vehicle, they fill their gas cans, some even fill containers that they absolutely should not be filling. If you rely on fuel for heat, generators, or transportation, having a safe and legal storage plan ahead of time matters. Waiting until the storm track shifts towards you or the war headlines spur a rush to the pumps is usually too late. Once mobility feels uncertain, the next priority becomes visibility. Number 6 is batteries. Demand for batteries spikes anytime outages are expected. Before people think about food, before they even think about comfort, they think about light. It's a primal survival instinct. We don't want to be left in the dark, defenseless. Lighting and communication are immediate psychological needs. During storms, grid failures, global conflicts, or even rolling blackouts, batteries disappear almost instantly. AA and AAA go first, then larger batteries, then power banks. Why? Because darkness feels vulnerable. A flashlight restores control and dampens fear. A charged phone restores connection, and connection reduces panic. People secure visibility even before they secure long-term calories. It's not logical, it's emotional. And in preparedness, understanding emotional buying patterns matters just as much as understanding logistics. Rechargeable systems help here. So do solar generators. So does simply having more than one flashlight in the house, because when the lights go out or even threaten to go out, the battery aisle empties within hours. And finally, once people feel physically secure and mobile, they think about health. Number 7 on the list is over-the-counter medications. Over-the-counter medications often thin out quickly during broader disruptions. We saw this clearly in 2020. Pain relievers, fever reducers, cold and flu medications, gone. People anticipate being stuck at home. They worry about pharmacy access being limited. They worry about hospitals being overwhelmed. And health uncertainty is deeply unsettling. Even if a disruption has nothing to do with illness, people think about the what ifs. What if someone gets sick and I can't get to the store? What if I can't get my prescriptions filled? Comfort and health feel urgent when uncertainty rises. Here's what's interesting. Shortages don't just empty shelves, they change behavior, and the pattern is predictable. Immediate needs go first: water, food, fuel, protection, and then buying behavior shifts towards longevity, shelf life, storage, and sustainability. The first wave buys what they need for tonight. The second wave buys what they need for next year. The mistake most people make is waiting until they see the empty shelves. By then, the second wave has already started, and once that wave hits, prices rise, options shrink, and quality drops. Preparation isn't about reacting to headlines. It's about building stability before urgency changes pricing and availability. That's why I build my pantry gradually. Everyday food for rotation, long-term storage for insurance, water bottles for daily use and short-term outages, but also water packaged specifically for long-term storage so I don't have to wonder if it's safe. Because when supply chains tighten, the goal isn't to compete, it's to already be finished. If you're thinking about strengthening your long-term food or water storage, do it when shelves are full. Do it when you have options. Do it when the prices are stable, because the worst time to prepare is when everyone else just realized that they should have. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, leave me a dice emoji down in the comments. Double check to make sure you're subscribed and you haven't been unsubscribed. And check out this video next for a guide to stocking a well-balanced prepper pantry. I'm Jara with Wicked Prepared. Survive today, thrive tomorrow. We'll see you next time.